Some generations grew up completely offline. Others were born directly into social media. But 90s babies grew up between two different realities. And psychologically, that changed them forever. Because if you were born between 1990 and 1999, you probably remember life feeling slower once. Not easier, just slower. You remember calling someone's house phone nervously, waiting for your favorite cartoon every week, burning CDs carefully, watching movies without checking notifications every 5 minutes. And somehow, those small moments felt emotionally bigger. That matters more than people realize. Because 90s babies experience something rare psychologically. They remember life before constant digital overstimulation. But they also became adults during the rise of it, which means many of them carry two completely different emotional systems internally. One craves simplicity, the other struggles surviving modern intensity. And if you're a 90s baby yourself, you've probably felt this conflict quietly for years, even if you never explained it properly. Think about childhood for a second. Back then, boredom existed. Real boredom. No endless scrolling. No personalized algorithms feeding attention constantly. Just silence sometimes. And psychologically, silence shapes people differently. Because boredom creates imagination. It teaches emotional patience. 90s kids learned how to sit inside moments fully. Long car rides, rainy afternoons, late-night television, neighborhood conversations under streetlights. Those experiences created emotional depth quietly. Because life moves slower emotionally. Now everything feels immediate. Entertainment appears instantly. Validation appears instantly. And the nervous system never fully rests anymore. That transition affected 90s babies deeply because they remember both versions of reality. Pause and reflect for a second. Do you miss old memories? Or do you miss how present you felt during them? That difference changes everything. Because nostalgia for many 90s babies is not really about technology. It's emotional memory. It's remembering a time before life became mentally overcrowded, before attention became fragmented constantly, before every experience turned into content. That's why so many people from this generation feel emotionally tired now. Not weak, tired. They adapted psychologically to nonstop cultural change. And adaptation exhausts people quietly, especially emotionally sensitive people. Think about social media. 90s babies watched it evolve in real time. At first it felt fun, harmless, almost innocent. You posted random photos, customized profiles, talked online after school. But slowly, something shifted. Social media stopped being entertainment. It became identity, self-worth, validation, and many 90s babies felt that transformation happening emotionally. That's why so many feel disconnected online now. They remember the internet before attention became monetized aggressively, before algorithms learned human insecurity perfectly, before comparison became endless. That creates emotional conflict internally, because one part of them still wants authentic connection quietly, while another part feels pressure to stay visible constantly. And that pressure becomes psychologically exhausting, especially for overthinkers, because 90s babies also grew up during uncertainty, economic instability, career anxiety, housing pressure, relationship confusion. They were told stability would arrive eventually. But for many, it never fully did. That changes nervous systems deeply. People start mentally preparing for problems constantly. Financially, emotionally, socially, romantically, and eventually, the brain stops relaxing fully. That's another hidden trait many 90s babies share. They struggle resting without guilt because hustle culture shaped them psychologically. You're supposed to improve constantly, achieve constantly, build constantly, and eventually, simple existence stopped feeling emotionally acceptable. Everything needed productivity attached to it, even rest, even happiness. Pause for a moment. When was the last time you felt fully relaxed, without feeling guilty afterward? That question hits many 90s babies deeply, because they became adults during the rise of constant optimization culture. And relationships changed too. 90s babies experienced connection before dating apps transformed intimacy completely. They remember mystery, anticipation, slow emotional attachment. Waiting for responses actually meant something emotionally. Now, connection feels instant, but strangely disposable. Infinite options changed how people attach emotionally. Many 90s babies still crave consistency quietly. Loyalty, effort, emotional depth. But modern culture rewards detachment, convenience, speed, and that creates internal conflict, especially for emotionally deep people, because many 90s babies learn to value sincerity emotionally, not performance, sincerity. And modern life often feels performative now. People document moments instead of fully living them. Conversations compete against phones constantly. Even happiness sometimes feels staged publicly. Emotionally aware people notice this quickly, especially introverts, because introverted 90s babies often feel overstimulation intensely. The noise, the visibility, the pressure to constantly respond. It becomes emotionally exhausting. That's why nostalgia affects this generation so powerfully. A childhood song can emotionally destroy them instantly. An old ringtone, a PlayStation startup sound, a cartoon intro, because nostalgia reconnects people to emotional safety, to presence, to simplicity. Not because life was perfect back then, because their nervous system remembers less overload. And honestly, many 90s babies feel emotionally homeless sometimes. Too old to fully relate to younger internet culture. Too young to completely connect with older generations. They exist between worlds. Analog childhood, digital adulthood. That creates quiet identity confusion because humans psychologically need stable reference points. But 90s babies experience reality changing faster than most generations before them. Technology changed constantly. Social expectations changed constantly. Communication changed constantly. Identity itself became public gradually. That affects mental health deeply, especially emotionally sensitive people, because constant change teaches the brain uncertainty, and uncertainty keeps people emotionally alert. That's why anxiety became normalized for this generation quietly. Not because they're weak, because their nervous system adapted to unpredictability. And from the outside, many 90s babies look emotionally intelligent and calm. But internally, many feel permanently tired, not physically, psychologically, because modern adulthood became emotionally heavier than expected, and comparison became global. As children, comparison stayed local mostly. Now it's everywhere. Careers, relationships, beauty, success, lifestyle. The brain compares constantly now. And human psychology was never designed for endless comparison exposure. That damages self-worth slowly, especially during your 20s and 30s. Many 90s babies spent years feeling behind silently, watching everyone online appear successful constantly, traveling, buying homes, getting married, looking fulfilled, and even emotionally aware people struggle resisting comparison completely. Because comparison activates survival instincts naturally. Humans instinctively measure belonging. But social media multiplied that instinct endlessly. That's why so many 90s babies became chronic overthinkers quietly. What am I doing wrong? Why does everyone else seem ahead? What if I never catch up? That mental scanning becomes exhausting eventually, especially late at night. But here's the deeper truth many people miss completely. 90s babies are not just nostalgic people. They are transitional people, psychologically transitional. They remember emotional depth before constant distraction consumed everything, which means many of them still crave something modern culture struggles giving now. Real presence, real conversations, real peace, real connection, not curated connection, not performative connection, real connection. And maybe that's why so many 90s babies feel emotionally disconnected from modern life sometimes. Because part of them still remembers what slower emotional living felt like. And once you remember that feeling, it becomes difficult accepting constant noise as normal. But maybe that awareness is not weakness. Maybe it's emotional intelligence. Because people who remember life before endless stimulation often become the people most capable of recognizing what actually matters later. Not visibility, not perfection, not constant achievement. Meaning, peace, sincerity, and honestly, those things are becoming increasingly rare now. So if you're a 90s baby and you sometimes feel emotionally overwhelmed, nostalgic, disconnected, or difficult to fully understand, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you were simply raised between two psychological worlds. One taught you how to be present. The other taught you how to perform presence. And now your mind is still trying to reconcile both. But maybe that awareness is also your gift. Because in a world constantly demanding more attention, 90s babies still remember something deeply human. How to miss moments genuinely. How to value connection slowly. How to feel nostalgia emotionally. How to sit inside silence sometimes. And maybe one day, those forgotten emotional skills will matter more than anyone realizes.